So, purpose of this evening's meeting is to interview two candidates that are scheduled for the vacancy on council. The process is going to be that council will ask questions. We have a predetermined set of questions. Mayor, you're going to go first. You have question number 1.
Yes.
We're going to stick to the questions. You're allowed to ask probing questions related to the questions that have been pre-written, but try not to deviate too far from the pre-established list of questions. There will be no deliberation by council on the candidates this evening. We'll do that at our March meeting. After council asks questions, the residents in attendance will have an opportunity to ask the candidates questions as well. The candidates will be able to ask council questions, and that'll be it. Any questions about the process? Okay. Great. So first up is Ms. Kara Martorell.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for coming. So I get to go first? Jeez, I'm not used to that, but anyhow, I'll try to get used to it. Sorry. What do you see as the top 3 issues facing Green Tree over the next 2 years? How would you prioritize them? Top 3 issues facing Green Tree over the next 3 years, and how you would prioritize them.
Okay, perfect. So as of right now, I would believe the top 3 issues that Green Tree currently is facing is, first of all, traffic and safety with the 376 interchange project. So that would be one of the top 3 issues. Challenges would include increasing cut-through traffic, pedestrian safety, and potential road wear concerns. So right now, I'm not going to go through in the exact order, but that would be one of the concerns right now that I think that Green Tree is going to be facing. Obviously, then second would be aging infrastructure. It can strain local budgets, and grant funding I know we have for the storm sewer and improvements, but that would be on my top 3 list. And then third, as always, would be the budget. And a budget, I think, would always be a concern, and want to make sure that we're making sure that while increasing taxes were avoided. I remember for 2026, I was lucky enough to be able to sit in on the budget meeting. I know that was open to residents, so very thankful to have that opportunity. I think council did a phenomenal job listening to every single issue that was going through and was very thorough with it. So I would think that the budget was always a issue that should be looked at year over year and continue looked at. So prioritizing level, I think the budget would always be first because everything else stems from the budget. Our main concern being to not increase residential taxes, so that the budget issue first, and then continually aging infrastructure and the interchange issue would coincide, I think, with each other, but the budget being the highest priority always.
Okay, thank you. In regard to 2 specific issues, how would you rate the swimming pool and the Point Park fill?
Yeah, so I would rate them right below the safety of the pedestrians with the 376, but I would think those 2 would be side by side because they're very important to this community. The community values the pool, they value the field, and just as right underneath those other 3. I think because the budget, again, is the most important, that would be first and foremost, which then filters down to the field and the pool.
Okay, and then another part of this question, and then I'll be done. What specific would you like to accomplish in your first 6 months if you become on council?
Yeah, so I really do think that there'll be a learning curve. So first and foremost, just learning how the council works, learning what the community specifically is looking for in their council. What are the goals of the council for 2026? How can I assist there? What projects do I need to be assigned to? When working with the entire council, I think, and learning where I fit in and how my strengths can be an asset to this community.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I've been around 20 years. I'm still on the learning curve.
Yeah.
I'm a slow learner.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'm up next. What does transparent and effective communication with residents look like to you? And what tools or practices would you use to improve trust and engagement?
Yeah, thank you. So I think transparent and effective communication from residents looks to me as having honest conversation. They may not be the easiest conversation, but honesty always comes first and foremost. And respectfully being able to listen. So not only having your opinions, but I think that listening to the residents and listening to understand rather than listening to respond is key in that transparency, and making sure that open communication and dialogue is always there for the residents of this community. Effective communication is keeping the residents informed in a timely fashion. We want to make sure that emails are answered in a timely manner, not going weeks with unanswered things, especially if there is issues that the residents are experiencing. So make sure that even if we don't have the answer right away, I'm responding to saying I'm looking into this, and then continuing following up every 2 days or so they know that you're still working on the issue and there's no radio silence. So I think that open dialogue is key. Practices for that communication, and I know that the council is looking to do this for 2026, is workshop meetings. Making sure that we really are representing the community and that our council is representing the community is key. So excited to be able to see that. And then also advertising when those workshops would be related to the necessary workshop. So for instance, if there's going to be a workshop on the pool, advertising that at the pool. So people would also see that and make sure that it's not just through an app or an email or online, that there's other visible ways to make sure that that communication is being sent.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, describe a time you supported a decision that was unpopular or not unanimous. How did you navigate disagreement and maintain working relationships?
Yeah, thanks. So I love this question because this is my everyday life. I work in my normal day-to-day as an account management. So my job is to be a peacekeeper, but also representing my company and then representing my client in the same breath, which is a very tricky balancing act, but it needs to be done to make sure that I can maintain that client for financial purposes, but then also maintain the integrity of the company. So that's a big deal and very important to me when maintaining really any relationship. It's an important aspect to have. So a lot of times there's decisions that are made, and really the key factor is understanding the why, and having data to be able to support the why of that decision is very important. So a client may come in or somebody may come in and say, listen, this is what we want, and unfortunately if we're not able to give it to them, make sure that I'm transparent on the reasoning behind it. And also understanding that I do hear them and understand their needs, even if unfortunately it's not able to be met. It might not be able to be met right now, but that door is always open for the future.
Okay, well, speaking of divided decisions, currently Homeland Security is asking our police department to go with them to sign a 287G agreement, which would allow our police to enforce immigration laws with Homeland Security. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so my thoughts are that I think it's great that there is an entire council to be able to have those conversations about these type of topics. So instead of an individual decision, it really is a collective decision between the community and the council, and representing the community and their needs first and foremost. So whether I may have independent opinions on that or not, I think is irrelevant when there is a council to be a team and make the decisions that best reflect the community's views.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Next, Tina.
Next, when resident feedback conflicts with your personal views, how do you decide your vote? Walk us through how you would evaluate an issue where public sentiment is divided.
Perfect, thanks. So really, my personal views, I feel are mute if I would step onto that council. My job as if I would be elected to council is to represent the community. So if I do have personal views, I think I would communicate those views to the other council members, what they were, but then also, again, I'm not representing myself as a representative of council, I'm representing the community. So if the views of myself were in line with data to support the decision that was being made, they couldn't just be my views. There would have to be a decision that this is actually best for the community. I have to be able to support that, and what data do I have? And then that goes back to that transparency and effective communication within the community. So why is this decision being made if it's not what the community wants? To make sure that there's that open dialogue.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Donna, you're up next.
This role requires preparation, meetings, committee work, and responsiveness to residents. What level of time commitment can you realistically sustain over the next, it says 1 year, but 2 years is the seat.
Yeah. So I am no stranger to juggling calendars, events, everything all the time for the past 16 years. So really, it's not really time commitment, it's time management. Where can you best effectively, openly have these and make time for it? So it's not necessarily commitment, but time management. So this becomes a priority if you're stepping on council. This is a high priority, so you make it work. You figure it out. And that, I think, most people, when they have multiple things going on and they have to juggle things, they work better in the chaos, and it's easier to find time when you're already doing that, because you need to be able to fit all the things in. So it's almost like a second nature for me. When there is downtime, I almost don't know what to do. I function better in chaos, I've learned. So when my kids are grown up, I'm just going to find a random team and follow them around, because I don't know what's going to happen with my time. So it really is time management for me.
Awesome. Thank you. Christopher?
My turn, yep. So my question is, what is your understanding of the borough's budget and financial responsibilities? How would you approach difficult trade-offs between services, infrastructure, and tax impact?
Thanks. So as I mentioned earlier, I was able to sit through the 2026 budget meeting, a very long meeting, but very thorough. So I really felt like I got an inside front row seat to be able to see what the council faces, the decision that makes. I think the council did a great job having open communication, from what I saw, with the borough manager to make sure that expectations were held, that there was communication between each other, a lot of questions were asked, and presentations were thorough. I think that with the budget too, whenever there is people coming in and they have a budgeting plan and there's preparations happening and they're getting proposals, having one proposal is never the answer. So I think having multiple proposals to choose from is going to be key into that budgeting factor as often as we can. My dad once told me a story when I was younger that he needed to get a tree chopped down in the front yard. So instead of just having one person, he had 3 companies come at the exact same time and let them bid out for who got the job. To me, that stuck in my head for my entire life and was genius. Who wants this? Because working for this community and being able to provide for this community is a privilege. So I think being able to go out and seek the best resource in this community is high. So that would affect the budget as well. So my understanding from that budget, I listened a lot. I think I still have a lot to learn, but I do have great resources in this community who have been sitting on this budget to ask.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks.
And I have the last one, Kara. Council sets policy while staff manages operations. How do you see the role of council in relation to the borough manager and department heads?
Yes. So I really do see that as a team and a true partnership within each other. We all work to serve the borough and the residents. So again, that really comes back to that clear communication and open dialogue between all three, and then holding each other accountable. I think as a good teammate that you would want to hold your teammates accountable, and not with, feeling hurt if someone says that you're not up to par. I think really constructive criticism and taking that, because you do want to be better for the community and for each other and for your team. You want to effectively be a great part of that team. So being able to take constructive criticism, giving constructive criticism, and then also holding our teammates accountable for what their duties are, but really a team together.
Great, thank you. Any other probing questions related to the questions we asked?
Is it appropriate to let her give an introduction a little about herself?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, yeah. So, Kara Martorella. I live at Arla Drive. I lived on Arla Drive most of my life, so my parents live on that street. I then bought a house on that street. I've been involved in Green Tree sports since I was younger. I've coached Green Tree soccer. My husband coached Green Tree soccer. I currently coach KO Youth Cheer Program. All 3 of my children are involved in sports. My husband's on the GAA, so heavily involved in this community. I love this community. I just feel that we are a gem hidden, and I think that we as residents of Green Tree are very lucky to have each other, because it's very odd to find people who care about their neighbors. On our street specifically, it's like 1955. I never know where my kids are, but I know someone's going to feed them. There could be 10 kids at my house. There's bikes in the front yard, and I think that has to be preserved at all costs. So any way that I can give back to this community for what they've done for me being raised here and what they're doing for my children, I just want to be able to help, so that's why I'm here. I also I teach certain groups at our community church that we're here. I lead growth groups, I lead women's studies, I teach a First Steps class, and I help in the youth ministry as well. So managing schedules I got it.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. That was
Thank
an
you.
oversight on my part. Thank you. Council, anything else? No. All right, so we're going to open up to the public. Any Anybody in the audience that wants to ask Ms. Mortarella questions? Yep, just announce your name and your address, please.
Okay, Elisa Kansky for Robin Hood Road. As a follow-up to Mr. Panz's question about the 297G agreements, I heard that you will, of course, work as a team with council and representation in the community. Is that something, as a representative on council, that you would bring as a prioritized issue to be considered in Green Tree? Thank you.
So the question being that, would that be a priority that I feel we would bring to Green Tree? I think if we would feel that the residents feel it's a priority, then yes, we would bring it. But I think that would dictate how the residents feel on that as well. Great question.
Any other questions? Great, do you have questions for us?
The only question I actually have is, with the new council and being the new year, what is your envision for 2026 as this council, and how the council can serve the community?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of change in front of us, and we look to continue to be transparent with more meetings, more workshops. We want decisions that are made here at our monthly meeting to basically be known by the residents in advance, based on the information and the communication and the dialogue that we have during the workshop meetings. We want the meetings to be more accessible, so we're working currently on upgrading the technology so that more residents can have access to the meetings, thinking about ways that we can make in-person meetings more accessible, potentially having open gym next door where parents can bring their children, have our rec department manage open gym while they sit here and participate in the meeting. Public safety, obviously, is always a priority, so we continue to work with PennDOT, as you mentioned, on the I-376 project, continue to work with the police department to ensure the safety of our roads, not only for vehicles but pedestrians. But each of the committees, they're putting together basically a strategic plan that lists objectives and priorities that we will keep top of mind and work towards, and seek resident feedback on those priorities as we move forward.
Great.
Any additions there?
Yeah, I like things you can see and touch. So, I mean, council has to make a decision on the pull, something concrete, so to speak, and a decision on Point Park Field, another thing, and then recently it's come up, the Nature Center, improvements in the Nature Center, that's another concrete thing. So I think concrete things, add to the community in addition to what you mentioned, your neighborhood. So those three, hopefully council can come to decisions on those three this year. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate all the feedback.
I think one other thing you take the concrete, the things you can touch. I think with all of the change that has happened, I sense a goal among us to just a pivot, a little bit of a pivot towards, I think you mentioned the transparency and some of those things, but I really feel like the sense that I've gotten is a real facing towards the residents. And that's anytime there's change, it's going to take time. So for me, that's been a goal. Being a new person here is I want to learn, I want to know, I want to understand. So yes, there's big projects, but I think us changing the culture, right? The culture is changing because there's changes here on council. Mm-hmm. But doing that in a way that serves our residents the best, I think, is what every single person on this council wants right now.
That's fabulous. Thank you. I think that was it for my questions.
Yeah, and those schools don't conflict.
No, they don't. You're right. They don't. They don't conflict.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They complement, which is
Compliment, yeah.
I personally, I plan on 2026 being much better than 2025. So I'm excited working with new council and looking forward to it. So
great.
else?
No, that was it for me.
Great.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to
Thank
be
you.
here tonight and
Appreciate your time. Thank
allowing me the opportunity. So thank
Great.
you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Thank you.
Mr. Daffner?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Been another prolifically long day in a very unfriendly court in Butler County. So I don't know what kind of answers you're going to get out of me tonight.
You ever come
Seems
across?
like, you know, with the old
you ever come
Yogi
across-
Berra saying, it's like deja vu all over again. I think I've done this before.
You ever come across Mike Zunder up there?
Yes.
We'll have to talk later. Mark, thanks for joining us tonight for the interview for council, the vacancy on council. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, the process is that council will ask a set of questions along with the mayor leading off on deck. After we ask questions, there will be an opportunity for council to ask probing questions, and then we'll hand it over to the residents who have an opportunity to ask questions, and then an opportunity for you to ask questions to council. There will be no deliberation tonight. That will be done at the March 2nd meeting. So to get started, if you could just share with council a little bit about yourself, appreciate it.
Okay, I think I know most of you here, but just a very short Cliff's Notes version for the one of you that I don't know. I am Mark Daffner. I've lived here for almost 20 years. In fact, in May it'll be 20 years. And an interesting house on Green Ridge that was occupied by our former council president, Marlene Wandrisco, before I came in. My kids have gone through Aiken. I mean, what else can I tell you? I've served the community. I've been on the Civil Service Commission. I was actually chair of the Civil Service Commission at one time. I've coached for GAA. I've been in the Green Tree Rotary. I am actually currently our elected state constable, which itself is really weird because somehow a defense lawyer got enough write-in votes to be a law enforcement officer, which is why you only see me at the polls on election day and not running around with warrants or doing any general law enforcement things. But it'd be sort of interesting, right? I could make some clients out of it and send them right across the parking lot to my office. So I do have 3 kids, 3 daughters, 19, 12, and 10. I'm 57, so there's no retirement for me. And in fact, my oldest just turned 19. She's in college in New York, and I went up there this past weekend to help her celebrate her birthday and promptly got into a car accident, minor at least. Nobody I'm going to sue up there, despite, you know, what I would want to have done. I don't know what else I could tell you. You can ask me whatever.
Well,
That's a little bit
lead
about
off. Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay. Mark, what do you see as the top 3 issues facing Green Tree over the next 2 years, and how would you prioritize them?
Well, I don't know that you can really quantify or prioritize. I think every issue is important in its own way. By issue, I assume you mean problem. So just to throw a couple out, and there aren't just 3, but, you know, we'll discuss, you know, how problems are relative, I guess, in a little bit. But, for example, one thing that really gets me, because I hear this every day, is that we haven't had a police chief in 2 years. Colin Cleary left 2 years ago. He started his new job March 1st of 24. I don't know what efforts have been made, if any. And the interesting part about that is that most of the officers are pretty happy without a chief. Most employees would be happy without a boss, too. But where, you know, at one point, it's sort of, you know, it really reflects on the borough negatively, because what I'm hearing downtown from these police officers that I deal with every day is, oh, you guys still don't have a chief. I mean, we're almost a joke to these guys. Nobody wants to work, or, oh, you know, oh, we're going to get a chief. Can I come be the chief for a month and then I'll quit? You know, I mean, these are the kind of jokes that are out there. So I think that needs to be focused on. And, you know, we're going to have some issues coming up that are going to involve public safety, not necessarily criminal acts or bodily injury or anything like that, but we're going to need our public servants. We're going to need our police. Right now we have a nine-person force. At least 3 of them have enough time in that they could retire tomorrow. And the newer ones don't have enough experience really to carry the entire department. So we do need to get some leadership there, and, you know, if for no other reason than to send an actual designee to the Police Chiefs Association meetings and things like that. And Chad's done a yeoman's job, and he's the guy that always seems to become the acting chief. In fact, 20 years ago, I remember with Bob Sifrelak, he took off, and Chad was the acting chief. I don't know anybody else that's been the acting chief. He's been more of a chief than most of our chiefs have been. So that is one issue. I think we're going to have to cross that bridge at some point. We can't keep ignoring that, year after year. And, we don't have a police chief. Do we need one? I don't know. That's up to council. I think we do. And we should make some headway on that. Other issues I think are going to crop up are, we're about to get really nailed by PennDOT in the next couple of years. And the way these people operate, they say, oh, we're going to do Trumbull Bridge in, 2027 or whatever. And this grandiose idea that they're going to put, new traffic lights, temporary traffic lights there and things like that. And they'll get everything done, on schedule. Like, that has never happened in the history of Pennsylvania, that PennDOT has done anything even remotely correctly. They could barely maintain the roads we have. So I don't know what's going to happen with this Trumbull Bridge. I know some people at PennDOT, and they've thrown out various ideas they've had that they haven't really thought out, like building a temporary bridge. Like, why don't you just fix the damn bridge that you're going to fix? You have to build a new one and then tear it down. That's ridiculous. Or keeping one lane open. And meanwhile, they're really big. I guess they're very proud of their temporary traffic lights. It must be a hell of a device. I haven't seen one. But, if you can imagine, what is that going to do to Mansfield? What's that going to do to Green Tree Road? Especially when PennDOT then swoops in, because they're never going to finish Trumbull in time to be done before they start doing the interchange project. And, it is what it is. I mean, this stuff is going to happen. We're going to have to deal with it. And I think one of the things we need to explore, even now, we can't do the whole, oh, we'll wait until they start and then worry about this. I think we need to actually reach out to some of the neighboring communities, because when people start taking detours, they're coming right through the borough. They're going to come up, come down Banksville, up Potomac, or up Crane, whatever. We're going to have a ton more traffic. We really don't have, enough public safety to take that kind of volume, I don't think. But combining with the city, the city police love driving through our borough. They like Chipotle, they like doing. I've even seen them make traffic stops, which is a little bit questionable. But it wouldn't kill us to at least explore talking to these communities. Crafton, anybody that's going to be using our resources to that degree, I think we need to at least have a discussion with. Can they help us out in any way? We can't, because we can't shoulder that burden. What other problems do we have? The pool, right? That's the perennial problem. It's now become a huge white elephant, I think, the pool. I've never seen anything like it, Really, the only thing we've established so far is that the pool, something has to be done with it. But we can't spend another 2 or 3 years wondering what we're going to do. We're lucky to even have a pool. I can go on and on, but I'm not going to, because I know there's other questions. But those are just some examples of things that we have to deal with, whether we like it or whether we don't. We're going to have to deal with it. And, but to put it in perspective, Ed, there's 2 billion people in the world that don't have drinking water, and 1.8 billion people that have never seen electricity, okay? And we're worried about a pool and some traffic. So our problems are not that huge in relationship to the vast majority of the rest of this planet. But we do have to deal with the issues that we have.
Yeah, the only comment that I feel compelled to make, so we have had an acting chief, and the acting chief has had all full responsibilities as a chief, and they have had a boss. So to the extent you applied, they didn't have a boss. They have had a boss who has, when the need arises, issued discipline and kept everyone in line. So.
No, I know that, but that was sort of metaphorical. You would be happy if the senior partners of your law firm just disappeared one day and left you to your own device too. Even if there was one guy that said you have to do this or go here or do that.
Okay. Thank you.
So.
Emily?
All right. What does transparent and effective communication with residents look like to you? What tools or practices would you use to improve trust and engagement?
Well, I think we went over that, I want to say the last interview, really, and I'm in favor of absolute transparency. By transparency, I don't mean, oh, here's our budget, and here's our policies, and here's our borough code, and you guys can read it if you want. What I mean are things like community engagement, I think, needs to be the synonym for transparency. There's nothing that prevents this council from, having coffee with council every few weeks, or having town hall meetings. Because one of the things I've noticed at meetings I've attended and just in talking to people is a lot of people feel that they're not being heard. And, their only realistic contact with local government is to come to a council meeting and hope they're given their 5 minutes of fame and that somebody hears them. I mean, I think we really need to reach out, sponsor some events. That, it's not going to really cost us much of anything to do that. I mean, so bagels or donuts and coffee, but the residents are going to eat it up. They're going to love it, and I think it's great. They can air their questions, their issues in an informal setting with all of council, or at least all the people that managed to make it to that meeting, and then they're going to feel heard. They're going to feel that there is transparency, that somebody actually cares about them. Because that's, at the end of the day, I think that's what residents really want. They don't want to just be these low-level people that council's up there and say, oh, to hell with you, we're going to do whatever we want. They want to be heard, and and we need to hear them. So, I would strongly suggest that we do things like that. That's the best way to ensure transparency, I think.
Okay. I am next. Describe a time you supported a decision that was unpopular or not unanimous. How did you navigate disagreement and maintain working relationships?
You watch the news, right?
Sometimes,
so you
yes.
could probably describe 50 times I've done just that. That is actually my actual job, is to support unpopular positions. But here's an example just from yesterday, if you want an actual example, and it's run-of-the-mill because they do this every day. I had a gentleman, sadly, he's a friend of mine, had a very bad night one night in the city and might have accidentally stabbed some people and done some bad things. We worked out an arrangement. We finally convinced our DA's office that this gentleman does not need to be in prison. He's 50 years old, has never had a prior record, and so on and so forth. And they agreed with me that really treatment is, treatment, counseling, mental health evaluation, that's appropriate. I was amazed actually just at that, because the sentencing guidelines called for 3 to 6 years in state prison. But happy as we were, and happy as the DA's office pretended to be, we went in front of the judge. I'm not going to name the judge. And they looked at it. He sort of looked at me as if like I'm this villain that browbeat them into this, and he said, well, I'm not comfortable with this. And I'm sort of thinking, well, you don't really have a choice, so saith the Supreme Court. You got to follow this, but they don't really have to follow it. And, he wanted to hear from me, and I gave him the whole argument about treatment versus jail, and, as opposed to, as related to this particular case. And he says, well, this is so far below guidelines, I'm going to put him in jail, but I can give him a county sentence. And I said, well, Judge, can we see you in chambers for a few minutes? We went in there, we had a discussion. I'm not going to detail it because it was a fairly lengthy discussion. And at the end of the discussion, we had actually made a compromise, believe it or not, where the judge himself agreed to postpone this case for 3 months, see how he's doing on bond still, and, the case has been going on for 2 years. He's going to be fine. But I understood the court wanted some form of control or incarceration. We don't want any. The DA's office wants to do something, whatever they do. And we ended up where he's going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 6 months on house arrest with work release, and release to take he's a single father, also take his daughter to and from school. And then he'll be on probation with stipulations of treatment, evaluations, things like that. So that's a long story, but that's really what I do for a living, is support very unpopular positions for people and try to work them out. Now, granted, there's sometimes we can't work them out, and we have to go to trial, and then eventually the district attorney's office is all mad at me because they lose. More often than not, we reach a compromise, and I think you can do that with really any situation as long as you present things logically and have an actual, not only a goal in mind, but a way to get to that maybe benefits everybody. So I think that answers your question. I forgot what the whole question was.
No, that did answer my question, but, speaking about split, supported decisions, recently Homeland Security has asked our police department to sign a 287G agreement with them to allow them to participate in immigration, laws. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, my thoughts first is that Homeland Security doesn't have the right to ask us that. You see, way back when, I've been practicing law 32 years, I actually ended up doing a lot of deportation defense. P.H. Seth, who's still around, one of the most preeminent immigration lawyers in the region, is a dear friend of mine. But the problem he always had is he couldn't do anything in court. So when somebody's getting deported, he would send them to me. And, 287 as a statute is not new. This isn't a new thing. People say, oh, well, Trump made this up. And no, that was actually part of the 1996 Immigration Reform Act. 287G. And
was that under Clinton?
That was under
1996, or?
I mean, I think the ideology is it started with Clinton.
I see.
But that's how old that statute really is, and it hasn't changed that much. I mean, there's only two elements of that statute that they want anybody to do, which is, one is it's called a jail enforcement method, which police departments can detain somebody for up to 48 hours and actually issue their own administrative warrant to hold them and then call Homeland Security. And I think that's mostly what these people want. And the other is it's the warrant enforcement model, where you take these administrative warrants, which, I mean, Ed, you can weigh in on this, but I don't think they're actually legal, an administrative warrant. But they want police to take these warrants and basically go and be Homeland Security. But the key to getting police departments involved is one of the provisions of 287G is that the way police departments get involved is the department has to ask Homeland Security, hey, you guys need our help? Then they come out with their agreements, and then they make all the arrangements. That's how it's always actually worked. So, I mean, my feelings on it are that, that there really has no place here. And, take away, even if you take away the whole immigration discussion that's been going around, it's the topic du jour, take that out of the mix and pretend it's something else that Homeland Security wants police departments to do. Are we going to see these guys patrolling our streets? Are they going to help us? Are they going to respond to domestics in the hotel? Are they going to direct traffic? They're not going to help us. And if they can't do their job themselves, we're under no obligation to. That just taxes our own resources, which are already, relatively thin and getting worse with, all the other price increases of everything else we have to pay for. So, they can't even give you a quid pro quo. They want people like Sheriff Joe Arpaio out in Arizona, if you know about him. He was like almost the king of Homeland Security before that was even a thing, and he would go running rampant through Phoenix and Maricopa County and grabbing everybody he could find. And, the typical problems that are resulting everywhere now resulted back then. You get a lot of innocent people who've done nothing. You get a lot of people where, I've had recently 2 clients that were picked up by ICE. I one guy, he was walking into court for an ARD hearing. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's first offense DUI. And the key is that you don't have a criminal record. There's no reason under INA 212 that they would actually be able to deport this guy. But ICE showed up, they grabbed him as he's walking into court. I found out a life hack, by the way, and Ed, you could probably pass that along. The life hack is ask the court quickly to revoke bond. then the county sheriffs will take them into custody, bring them to the county jail, and when ICE gets tired of it, they'll just reinstate bond and let them out. But, so it's become a real issue, and I don't see any place for our police department or our borough to participate in it.
Good. Okay, up next is Tina.
My question is, when resident feedback conflicts with your personal views, how do you decide your vote? Walk us through how you would evaluate an issue where public sentiment is divided.
Well, I don't know that there's a, I don't know that that's even a question. How do you decide your vote if everybody wants one thing and you want something else? I mean, there's a reason that we call these people in Harrisburg and these people in Washington, we call them representatives. And the reason for that is that it's impractical to send every resident of every town to Harrisburg to vote on something. So you've got to vote your constituency. And I've even discussed this with legislators because, a lot of times they'll sort of go a bit far afield on these things and interject their own personal views. You're not elected to, I wouldn't be elected to, Mark Daffner says to do it this way. I'm not the king. I'm not even a judge. Tried to be once, but I'm not. So, and what I always tell these legislators, both state and federal, I've had these discussions with them, is, if everybody in your district says the sky is green, the sky is blue, you got to vote green. That's it. These are the people you represent. You're representing their interests. You're not in any position, whether it's council, whether it's, all the way up to the U.S. Senate. You don't just say, well, I want to do it this way, so this is the way it is, if everybody's saying something different. That's how you represent your constituents. We don't see that much. We do in councils in all different boroughs and townships, but we don't see that much on the grander level in Harrisburg and Washington and really every other state in the country. So, that's my answer in a nutshell, is you represent your constituents. And if that's what the majority is asking you to do, then, unless it's something that is incredibly hurtful and nobody has seen it yet, in which case you still don't just, I still don't think you just throw up a wall and say, well, the hell with you, we're doing it this way. You still open it up for a rational discussion. But you got to vote what your constituents want.
Thank you.
Sure.
Donna?
This role requires preparation, meetings, committee work, and responsiveness to residents. What level of commitment can you realistically sustain over the next 2 years?
Well, I don't think anybody knows exactly what level, because you don't know what issues you're going to have to deal with, and the best thing I can say, and it's good advice for anybody, is you just do what needs to be done. That's it. I'm used to that. I have 3 kids. I have a practice that spreads statewide. A lot of times I don't feel that I sleep even for months on end. But, you do what it takes, period. But again, you've got a job. You're representing these people. That's what you've committed to do. So you make the time. And the second you can, if I'm on council and I can't make the time, then that means it's time for me to leave, and I will. So that's my answer there, is you do whatever it takes.
Good. Christopher?
Yes. Hello, Mark.
Hi there.
I've been enjoying hearing all of your stories tonight. It's been great. I hope I never...
Oh, I got a million better ones than
need to
that
work
we
with
can
you.
have drinks at
I appreciate
Alexion's
it.
over it.
Yeah. So my question is, what is your understanding of the borough's budget and financial responsibilities? How would you approach difficult trade-offs between services, infrastructure, and tax impact?
Well, I do have a life hack for that issue, because prices of everything are going up. I think everybody knows what the budget is, and we have all different elements. You have a general fund, a capital improvement fund. You got to have an escrow for, if somebody wins an assessment appeal, and everything else that comes with it. But, if the question is, do I support raising taxes on the residents of the borough, the answer is absolutely not. Absolutely not. But we don't really have to, we don't have to skin the residents of this borough alive if we have to raise money. We have over 500 businesses in this borough, believe it or not. We have giant commercial properties. Everybody knows about the hotel. Do you think if we raised their taxes by $1 million or $2 million that Hilton's going to go out of business, or that they're going to just yank their hotels out? They're not going to. They're going to pay it. Or maybe they don't get our police department going up there for problems, and they have to have their own security. I mean, you know, you can impose tax on commercial entities for a couple of reasons. One, they're deep pockets. They can cover the expense. They are typically happy to do so, and the reason they're happy to do so is they can also write that off. You know, it's a zero-sum equation. It's almost a win-win. You start raising taxes on residents, you know, that's going to be a problem. That's when we, you know, come close to the bar. I mean, remember the Boston Tea Party was over tax stamps. You don't want riots in the streets of Greentree. I don't see that actually happening, but, you know, I mean, metaphorically, because you know, we're going to have to raise some money here at some point. You know, in fact, every year we sort of do, and we do a pretty good job comparatively with budgets. And I lived in the city for a lot of years before I moved out here from law school. I think, when did I graduate law school? 93 to 2006 when I moved out here. I lived in the city, and I was politically active, so I would see that really just the hellish nature of what these people would do to the city budget. And actually, back in the day, I think Ron could probably tell you about this too, you know, they would sort of build in a lot of things like paying off the building inspector. That's a line item for the city of Pittsburgh in the 90s. Payoffs to the union bosses. We don't have to worry about that. You know, but if we are hit with expenditures that we may not be able to make, that would be my suggestion, is, you know, we try for the win-win before we start losing residents, or before we have people so upset that they really don't care about anything anyway.
Good. Last question. How do you see the role of council in relation to the borough manager and department heads?
Well, I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. One thing we have to remember is that council actually hires these people, okay? They serve at the pleasure of council by and large. That doesn't mean that we have to be these mean bosses and, you know, boss them around. We've hired them because they have very specialized skills and experience and knowledge. I think there has to be a synergy, and you've got to work together. You know, this is not no borough is a place that just, you know, 10 people can control the entire place. When they try to do that, you know, you end up with real problems, and there's 162 municipalities in Allegheny County, and probably 50 of them are exactly like that. You've got one guy whose family has been in charge since the 1300s, and, you know, they think they can do everything, and those are the places that are dying off. So you really do have to have a level of cooperation on any number of respects. I mean, again, you know, I was chair of the Civil Service Commission, and that was an era where we actually did have some significant problems, and we had to deal with things like louder mill hearings, and, you know, deal with issues with the borough manager disciplining officers, and, you know, and then council would be asked to uphold or deny that, and then they would appeal to us. So really, you know, it's not even just council and, you know, and borough administration. I mean, it's really, you know, it's sort of council and everybody else also. You know, we have to work together if we're going to be successful.
Good. Thanks, Mark.
Sure.
Any questions from the public?
Nobody wants to hear me talk.
Yeah.
Everybody hates lawyers. We're always talking.
Do you have any questions for us?
No, I think I'm pretty well versed in what happens around here.
Anything else from council? Good. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. You go home and get an hour of sleep and go back down for parole hearings tomorrow morning.
Deal.